Hi, I made a video a couple of days ago about the incident that took place in McKinney regarding Eric Casebolt, the police officer, in relation to an incident that occurred in a street in McKinney. And, a few things have happened since I made that video, and I wanted to talk about those things. Firstly, the officer resigned. Now, that was actually something that shocked me. I really didn't think that would happen. And as I said in the original video, I said, one of the things that enrages me about these types of things is that nothing will happen, the guy will continue to work and all of that. Well, actually a couple of days ago he resigned, and I thought that was actually a pretty good outcome given the way these things often go. Now, the only thing that concerns me about that is that I wonder if he could still work as a police officer in another city or another state. So I think people, need to pay attention to what he does in the future, or what other people who do things like that do when they resign. Are they able to continue to find employment in the same field? Because I think they should be stopped from continuing to work in the same field or the same industry. The other thing I wanted to talk about was were the words of the police chief in McKinney. He referred to the officer's actions as indefensible and out of control. I think those are pretty strong words, which I agree with, and I think a lot of other people agree with them as well. But what shocked me, it shouldn't have shocked me, what interested me were some of the comments I read on the Facebook page of the McKinney Police Department. There are a number of comments there that referred to the police chief's actions as outrageous and disloyal. He's abandoning his police officers, and all these very extreme points of view. Now, what bothers me about that is the fact that some people have this kind of blind allegiance to authority or police in general, as though somehow police figures are godlike and completely incapable of doing bad things, completely incapable of making mistakes. Now, that is a very dangerous point of view to hold, or a very dangerous way of looking at authority figures, because ultimately, human beings are imperfect and human beings make mistakes. Now, in any occupation, it's absolutely essential that those who behave inappropriately, be it a doctor or a nurse, a teacher, whoever, are disciplined accordingly. Now, I really don't think the average person would think it would be reasonable if a doctor who behaved really unprofessionally and did terrible things was allowed to continue practicing as a doctor, or a teacher who did really bad things was able to continue teaching. I don't understand why some people think police should be held to a different standard. Yes, the majority of police officers probably are very good, do great work, are wonderful people in their job. Unfortunately, there's a small percentage, as there is in any profession, and the police is no different. There's a small percentage of officers who do not behave appropriately and who do bad things. Now, the video or the actions of Eric Casebolt are one such example where an officer behaved unprofessionally, against procedures, all of those things. That person should be held accountable and should be disciplined accordingly. In this instance, he resigned. Okay, that's a reasonable outcome. But the fact that people criticize the police chief for, referring to the actions as indefensible and out of control are very concerning, because basically those people are saying, well, we should not challenge the bad actions of officers. They should be allowed to continue to behave in such a way. That is just completely ridiculous, because you're basically supporting this false notion that police are perfect and police are incapable of doing anything wrong. This is what the problem is. This is at the core of community concern about the way police are handled by their superiors. If people do bad things, they should be punished accordingly. Police are no different. Now, going back to the original video I made and some of the comments I read, there were a couple of people that commented on my accent, basically suggesting that I don't have an American accent, so therefore my views somehow don't have validity. Well, clearly that's a ridiculous viewpoint as well, because it doesn't matter what my accent is. I live in this country, I'm exposed to this culture, I have the right to express an opinion. It doesn't mean you have to like it. But just because I wasn't born here doesn't mean my capacity to analyze what goes on here is, somehow weaker or somehow less that my viewpoint is somehow less valid. That's not the case. The other thing is, a couple of people or someone mentioned that, you know, I'm not from McKinney, I'm not from the neighborhood. Why are people, you know, sticking their nose in our business? Hello, welcome to the world. We live in a global world. We don't live in a box. Everything is connected. I don't need to live in that street to have an opinion or to know what goes on there. I don't need to have been there to be able to express an opinion. This is the world we live in. Everything is connected. There's a cell phone, social media, television, news, internet. If it concerns you that people are saying things about your neighborhood, well, I mean, maybe you should go cut yourself off from the internet and modern society, because this is the world we live in. All right? That's all I'm going to say on this topic. I normally record videos in Spanish to practice my Spanish, so if you speak Spanish or you have an interest in that, please continue to follow my videos and you might find something of interest. Thank you. Bye.